Ren Zhengfei's father is named Ren Moxun, and his grandfather was a well-known ham merchant in Zhejiang province. The Ren's family had accumulated considerable wealth over the years of doing business, providing Ren Moxun with a comfortable upbringing. Ren Moxun was the only child in his family to go to university, bringing great pride to his family. During his time in college, Ren Moxun actively participated in student movements and delivered speeches against Japanese invasion. However, Ren Moxun's father passed away when he was in college, forcing him to abandon his studies and return home after 3 years in college. Through a tenfold introduction, Ren Moxun came to work as an accountant at a military factory in Guangzhou owned by the Kuomintang. Later on, due to the Sino-Japanese War, the factory moved to Tongzi in Guizhou province. In Guizhou, Ren Moxun met Chen Yuanzhao, the mother of Ren Zhengfei. On October 25, 1944, Ren Zhengfei was born in Guizhou province. After the establishment of People's Republic of China, Ren Zhengfei's parents became middle school teachers. Ren Zhengfei was born in Guizhou, a poor inland province of China. Moreover, Ren Zhengfei was the eldest among 7 siblings, and the family of 9 merely sustained their livelihood on his parents' meager wages. The family only had 3 blankets for 9 people, so 3 people shared 1 blanket, and the bed was padded with straw. Before attending university, Ren Zhengfei had never worn a shirt and only had 1 jacket all year round, which he had to wear even in hot weather. More severe than this was hunger. During Ren Zhengfei's high school period, China was experiencing a severe famine. Back then, many parts of Guizhou didn't even get to eat flour for a month. To compensate for the lack of food, Ren Zhengfei's mother had to dig wild vegetables every day. To ensure everyone's survival, a strict rationing system was implemented during meal times. As Ren Zhengfei was in high school with heavy study loads, he often couldn't sleep due to hunger and had difficulty concentrating on his studies, resulting in him having to retake exams to be qualified. At that time, there wasn't even a locker with a lock in Ren Zhengfei's house. All grains were stored in pottery jars, but neither Ren Zhengfei nor his siblings ever stole food. Many years later, when Ren Zhengfei recalled his youth, he repeatedly emphasized that the selflessness of his family was stemmed from his parents' education. It was this quality that led to his success. During Ren Zhengfei's senior year of high school, the family saved the little corn cakes they only had for him to facilitate his studies. Years later, Ren Zhengfei recalled that if he hadn't had those corn cakes back then, he probably wouldn't have been able to attend university, and there would be no Huawei afterwards. At the age of 19, Ren Zhengfei was admitted to Chongqing Institute of Civil Engineering and Architecture. To support his son's education, Ren Moxun gave his only pair of leather shoes to Ren Zhengfei, walking in cloth shoes himself. Many years later, Ren Zhengfei still vividly remembers the pair of leather shoes his father gave him that year. In 1967, Ren Zhengfei graduated from university and joined a construction engineering unit. At work, he met his first wife, Meng Jun. Meng Jun's father was the vice governor of Sichuan province, while Ren Zhengfei was a college graduate from an ordinary family. Later, when Ren Zhengfei recalled his first wife, he said, "I didn't even have a girlfriend when I graduated from university. Then someone introduced me to Meng Jun. Meng Jun is beautiful and comes from a good family background. Compared to her, I'm like an ugly frog versus a white swan. Apart from being good at studying, I've no special skills." It was shocking and hard to understand that Meng Jun would take the initiative to get to know me. On Meng Jun's insistence, her father, the provincial governor, also accepted Ren Zhengfei. 3 years later, in 1970, Ren Zhengfei married Meng Jun, and their daughter, Meng Wanzhou, was born in 1973. They later had a son, Meng Ping. In 1973, Ren Zhengfei enlisted in the army, becoming a technical soldier whose task was to carry out construction work in various parts of China. The first project Ren Zhengfei participated in was the construction of a chemical plant in the northeast. The northeastern region of China is very cold in winter, with temperatures dropping to minus 28 degrees. There were no houses on the construction site, and Ren's construction team could only live in dugout cellars. Furthermore, the northeast region lacked vegetable supplies in winter. And for half a year, Ren Zhengfei could only eat sorghums and pickles every day. Later, when Ren Zhengfei recalled this period of his life, he said, "We were learning the most advanced technology while leading the most primitive life. In summary, it was a world of ice and fire." Ren Zhengfei worked diligently and responsibly at his work, eventually being promoted to the deputy director of the Building Research Institute, a deputy regiment level cadre. In 1978, China began its reform and opening up, starting the establishment of a socialist market economy system, and the focus of China's development began to shift towards economic construction. Ren Zhengfei joined the Communist Party of China. In the 1980s, China began to demobilize millions of troops, and in 1983, Ren Zhengfei's unit was decommissioned. Due to Ren Zhengfei's diligent work attitude and excellent technical ability, he was originally arranged to work in a military research base. To share this good news with his family, Ren Zhengfei invited his wife and daughter, Meng Wanzhou, to visit the military base. But during the visit, Meng Wanzhou inadvertently said, "This place is so desolate." His daughter's offhand comment changed Ren Zhengfei's decision. Since joining the army, Ren Zhengfei had been living apart from his family for a long time. He felt that he hadn't fulfilled his duties as a husband and a father. If he stayed to work at the military research base, it would mean that he would still have to live apart from his family, with infrequent reunions. Ren Zhengfei thought that he could endure hardship and fatigue, but he couldn't let his family suffer with him. Therefore, Ren Zhengfei decided to leave the military research base and thus left the army, where he had worked for more than 10 years. After leaving the military, Ren Zhengfei, introduced by his wife, began working at Shenzhen Nanyou Company. At 38 years old, transitioning from the military to society, Ren Zhengfei found everything very unfamiliar. For instance, when he first heard that a bedroom could come with an ensuite bathroom, he couldn't understand it, believing that urinating and defecating in the bedroom would pollute the environment. Eager to make a significant contribution upon arriving at the company, Ren Zhengfei volunteered to manage a poorly performing branch. However, Ren had no business experience and was duped during a transaction. The other party requested to receive the goods before making payment. Ren Zhengfei agreed, but after receiving the goods, the other party disappeared without paying. This resulted in a loss of RMB 2 million for the company. At that time, the average wage in Shenzhen was only a few hundred yuan, so 2 million yuan was almost astronomical. The executive of Nanyou Company were extremely angry and immediately dismissed Ren Zhengfei, holding him directly responsible. Moreover, Ren Zhengfei's wife, Meng Jun, who was an executive at Nanyou Company, also had disagreements with him. Ren Zhengfei pleaded with her not to fire him, but Meng Jun insisted on keeping work matters separate and denied his request. Additionally, Ren Zhengfei's parents moved to Shenzhen to live with him, but Meng Jun wanted them to return to their hometown. When Ren Zhengfei disagreed, a huge row ensued between the couple, which eventually led to Meng Jun filing for divorce. With no other option, Ren Zhengfei agreed. He was 44 years old at the time. In the 1980s, going into business was referred to as going out to sea, meaning a highly risky activity. Without a job, Ren Zhengfei resolved to start his own company. In 1987, with a borrowed 20,000 yuan, Ren Zhengfei founded Huawei. At the outset, Ren Zhengfei was not clear about what kind of business to run. Many companies in Shenzhen at that time were involved in reselling foreign products in China. Ren Zhengfei initially dealt with fire alarms and even sold weight loss pills. Then, by chance, he learned of a huge market demand for switches in the telecommunication industry. This led him to become an agent for a Hong Kong company that manufactured these switches. He made his first fortune when he sold out an inventory worth RMB 20 million within 3 months. There were hundreds of similar agencies in the market then. However, Ren Zhengfei stood out because he was not content with just being an agent. He wanted to start developing technology with intellectual property rights. For this reason, in the same year he made his first fortune, he approached Zheng Baoyong, who was pursuing his PhD at Tsinghua University, China's premier university. Offering a high salary, Ren Zhengfei lured Zheng Baoyong to join Huawei and entrusted all technical development work to him. For the next 10 years, Zheng Baoyong was in charge of Huawei's tech development, helping to develop technology with its own intellectual property rights. In 1996, just as Huawei was on the rise, Ren Zhengfei realized that for a company to adapt to intense market competition, it must continuously transform and weed out those who lose their combat effectiveness. Thus, right after Spring Festival in 1996, the entire marketing department of Huawei received shocking notices. Everyone had to submit 2 reports within a week, 1 performance report and 1 recognition letter. The company would approve 1 based on each person's job performance. After this event, about 30% of the staff in the marketing department were eliminated. Mao Jiangshen, the president of the marketing department, was also dismissed. In 2007, Huawei staged an event where 7,000 employees resigned. The company required all employees who had been working for over 8 years to resign before New Year's Day of 2008. After resigning, they could apply for their positions. Those who qualified would sign a new 1 to 3 year contract with Huawei. Unemployment subsidies were provided for those who did not get rehired. Ren Zhengfei admired the characteristic of wolves. He once summarized that the development of a company needed the wolf. Wolves have 3 main traits: sharp sense of smell, perseverance in attacking, and team spirit. A company needs these 3 elements for expansion. In its early days, Huawei relied on this wolf-like spirit to conquer the market. New employees were given a towel quilt and a mattress when they reported to work. They would sleep on the floor during lunch breaks. Many stayed overnight working, sleeping on the mattresses when tired, and continued to work upon waking up. Ren Zhengfei's competitive strategy was to see which product was selling well in the market, and then mobilize his wolf-like R&D team to imitate it. They spared no effort to work day and night, quickly developing products that could replace similar foreign products and then seize the market with low prices. However, with Huawei's development, this wolf culture was gradually abandoned by Ren Zhengfei, especially in 2006 when a 25-year-old employee, Hu Xingyu, died suddenly during overtime work, which sparked widespread social condemnation. Reflecting on this, Ren Zhengfei modified the wolf culture. He proposed the concept of wolf-jackal culture. Wolves are fearless, while jackals are smarter. The development of an enterprise should have the spirit of a wolf, but also needs to be strategic like jackals, considering methods and not blindly pursuing efforts, regardless of costs or consequences. After 2000, due to decision-making errors from misjudgment of market development, Huawei faced a major crisis. After 14 years of rapid growth, Huawei's performance stagnated in 2001 and even declined in 2002. At that time, Ren Zhengfei had begun trying to sell Huawei. In 2003, Huawei and Motorola reached an agreement. Motorola would acquire Huawei for $10 billion. However, changes in the top management at Motorola later vetoed the resolution. Ren Zhengfei's joy turned into disappointment. At the same time, there was confusion about the future development of Huawei. In 2004, at a telecommunication exhibition in Brunei, a reporter asked Ren Zhengfei about Huawei's future direction. Ren Zhengfei shook his head and said, "I cannot clearly state what the key point is. I don't know how it will develop in the future." He even added, "Doing business now is very difficult. It would be great if I had a restaurant now. The gross profit would be much higher." For 7 or 8 years after 2000, Ren Zhengfei suffered from depression, at times even contemplating suicide. To alleviate his depression, he went back to Guizhou province and stayed with his mother. Unfortunately, in December 2000, Ren Zhengfei's mother had a serious car accident and passed away shortly afterward in the hospital. At the time, Ren Zhengfei was on a business trip in Iran. Although he rushed home as quickly as possible, he didn't get to see his mother one last time. This incident intensified Ren Zhengfei's depression, and for half a year he was plagued with nightmares, unable to sleep properly. In this difficult time, Ren Zhengfei received support from his family. His youngest daughter, Annabelle Yao, born in 1998, was 4 or 5 years old at the time. Every time Ren Zhengfei came home, his little girl would spontaneously greet him. Holding his adorable daughter, Ren Zhengfei felt a sense of responsibility. Daughter's love for Ren Zhengfei motivated him to adjust his mood, restarted the development of Huawei, and gradually pull Huawei out of its slump after 2007. In 2017, Ren Zhengfei, who has always been low-key, made a high-profile appearance at the Parisian socialite ball to fulfill his young daughter's wish. During his university years, Ren Zhengfei studied Mao Zedong's selective works diligently, drawing many inspirations from Mao Zedong's thoughts and management methods. For instance, he admired Mao Zedong's movement-based management style, believing that to prevent organizational degeneration and decline, a whirlwind of thought should be launched every 3 to 5 years to break free from inertia and remove unhealthy cells of the organization. Ren Zhengfei summarized this method as self-criticism and wrote it into the Huawei Basic Law. He said, "We must constantly self-criticize. Regardless of how much progress we have made, we must persist in self-criticism. The world develops through eternal negation." Having a military background, Ren Zhengfei drew many inspirations from military thinking. In 2006, Huawei imitated the Red-Blue Army setup in military exercises and established the Blue Army Staff Department. Thereafter, the role of the Blue Army became increasingly prominent. For example, during discussions about whether Huawei should sell its terminal business, mobile phone business, the Blue Army proposed key suggestions in their analysis report, titled "Abandoning Terminals is Abandoning Huawei's Future." The report asserted that terminals would be the decisive force in the information consumption industry of the future. At that time, Huawei's decision-making level had already agreed to sell off the terminals. But after Ren Zhengfei read the Blue Army's report, he decisively halted the sale. It was due to the excellent performance of the Blue Army that Huawei's smartphone later took off. Huawei faced sanctions from the US after 2018. Regarding this, Ren Zhengfei's attitude was first and foremost not to hijack the Chinese people with populism to support Huawei. He refused to accept titles like Huawei is a national hero. Towards the West and Apple, Ren Zhengfei has always believed that the depth and breadth of science and technology in the United States are worthy of learning for Huawei. When Steve Jobs passed away, Ren Zhengfei held a memorial at his home with his family. Ren Zhengfei believes that Apple is a great leader, and Huawei needs to study Apple seriously to become a world-leading company. Ren Zhengfei said, the strength of any organization comes from it being an open system. If it cannot begin to be open, the system will lose its strength, power, and drive. In the development process of an enterprise, necessary compromises are important. Without compromise, there is no tolerance, and it loses the power to attract talents. The key to dealing well with openness and compromise is to grasp the concept of gray. There are not only black and white colors in the world. Gray requires managers to measure management, make compromises, adopt a tolerant attitude, accommodate and balance management, to achieve internal cohesion within the organization. Ren Zhengfei believes that the Chinese government will never retaliate against Apple's sales in China because of U.S. sanctions against Huawei. Ren Zhengfei says that an old Chinese saying goes like this: without external enemies, usually brings destruction. If Huawei lacked a strong and respectable competitor like Apple, Huawei would certainly become complacent and gradually lose its fighting spirit, eventually losing the motivation to develop. Apple's presence in the Chinese market is a critical factor for Huawei's growth. At the same time, Ren Zhengfei was prepared for the U.S. government's sanctions against Huawei. Before Meng Wanzhou was detained by the Canadian government, Ren Zhengfei estimated that the U.S. would sanction Huawei within 2 years. After the Meng Wanzhou incident, he realized that the U.S. sanctions would come earlier and more fiercely. In Ren Zhengfei's eye, Huawei people have sacrificed their personal time, their time with their parents and children, to work hard and immerse themselves in work. The ultimate goal is for an ideal, to stand at the top of global technological development. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel. I will see you next time.